The content of this podcast is based on medical fact and evidence-based practice from credible authoritative sources, but is not a substitute for your institution's policies, procedures, common sense, or good judgment. The views and opinions are those of Eric Bauer and FlightBridgeED in their entirety. This is the FlightBridgeED Podcast, critical care and emergency medicine education for nurses and paramedics. Here's your host, Eric Bauer.
Hey everybody, Mike Verkest along with Eric Bauer and John Clark from the International Board of Specialty Certifications. We are here specifically to talk and discuss advanced certifications. Why do people need them? How you doing, Eric?
I'm doing great. Super excited to have you as the representative of the IBSC as the Chief Operating Officer, and really want your insight on quite a few questions that we get all the time.
And one of those is, well, what exactly is an advanced certification? Why do I need that? What's the benefit to me? What's the benefit to an employer? So maybe you could just talk at like the 10,000 foot level, just in general, about the certifications that IBSC has to offer.
Well, the idea of specialty certification is to validate a specific body of knowledge that is unique to a certain area of practice. And if we really think about it in the model of physicians in the United States, you are licensed to be a physician in a state, but if you're going to practice emergency medicine, you have to be board certified by ABEMS to be a board certified emergency medicine physician. When paramedicine and paramedic practice, you're really qualified as an entry-level provider when you sit for your first paramedic exam by the National Registry or by your state. And then after you have some practice and you specialize, that's when specialty certification that the IBSC offers comes into play. The idea of that unique body of knowledge as a flight paramedic is very different from what you've been doing on, say, the street as a 911 medic. And the way we validate that is through a valid and psychometrically sound examination.
So who do you find is looking to obtain a specialty certification? So obviously people have heard of things like the FPC, the CCP-C, amongst a number of other specialty certifications that are out there. Who are those people that are right for looking for that specialty certification?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because some people take it, like the flight paramedic exam is a great example, that they think they make themselves more attractive as a candidate for a flight program if they already hold their FPC. We can tell you through just experiential knowledge that it takes about 3 to 5 years of experience in a busy 911 system before you're really able to do well on the certified flight paramedic exam. Some of the other exams, the community paramedic exam is a great example in that there are programs that this is very new. This is a kind of a new way we're delivering EMS, and programs that are saying, hey, I've heard about this. I want to start something. What are the recommendations? And so when you study for that exam, it's a baseline that an organization can start from. The other place that we see, interestingly, is in a lot of contractor jobs, like say in the Middle East, they're hiring security contractors.
Sure.
You'll see tactical paramedic or flight paramedic as an entry-level requirement because they're really trying to sort out, from the thousands of applicants of who really is doing the job and has the knowledge.
So from a perspective of those two advanced certifications, FPC, CCP-C, what are the differences? Why should I go with one over the other?
Well, Eric, a lot of people ask that question, and they're very similar clinically. CAMES accepts both for critical care to be a CAMES accredited program. But obviously, flight paramedic has flight physiology, is a little more focused on that environment. The critical care paramedic is exactly the same medicine. Let me back up and say it's not exactly the same medicine, but very similar. A cardiac patient's a cardiac patient, et cetera. What we see more on the critical care exam is because ground teams tend to move more of that is maternal fetal, high risk OB, neonatal, pediatrics, things like that those ground teams are more exposed to.
So one thing I would love to go back to is the 3 to 5 years of experience and why that's important. I think Eric and I and everyone at FlightBridgeED, we see a variety of folks come through the review courses, online, in person, whatever it happens to be. And a lot of them don't quite, maybe don't understand why that is such an important piece to this puzzle. So maybe you could talk a little bit about what is magical about 3 to 5 years?
Well, we've seen it from statistics. The reason we put it that 3 to 5 year, we know from your test taking of who's successful and who isn't. So we just know that's empirical evidence that says that about 3 years, that's when we see success. So I was talking to a student that had taken one of the FlightBridge programs, and he had taken several other review programs. And he said it really didn't click with him. He had taken the exam, the flight paramedic exam, and he had failed. He had taken the flight paramedic exam, and he was kind of at that cusp of about 2.5 years of experience. And he said the thing that really clicked with me was that the discussion wasn't about learning, answer A is going to be this, and, question number 32, we're going to talk about this. That it was really testing my critical thinking skills. And I think that's why we see that trip over at 3 to 5 years, because it's not just rote knowledge that the exam looks at. It really takes a seasoned paramedic and looks at their strategic thinking and how they apply it in a very analytical piece to the answer to the question.
Well, and I think that's great. We really try to tell people that our program specifically, we want it to be in depth. We ask all the time, what can we do better? I want people to walk out of there. Yes, it's important for them to pass the exam, but I really want them to be better critical thinkers and be able to take care of patients, right? I think from an education standpoint, you reach so many more people, right? And so I think that's our most important aspect of our course. If you have that mindset, that should be our first mindset, is investing in their critical thinking, their understanding.
And if I can add to that, I think this is an example that I use oftentimes about making yourself a better paramedic. Is I had a soft medic that came to me at one of the tactical conferences, and he walked up kind of with his gruff little exterior, and he's like, "I hate your exam. I hate you. I hate everything about it. Oh, I passed." And he said, "Let me tell you a story." He said, "I was in country for less than a week," and he said, "They come running for the dock, and I go over and I have to deliver a baby." And he said, "If I hadn't had to study all this stuff I hadn't touched that since I was in paramedic school."
Right.
Yeah.
And he said, I had to learn all of the stuff that I knew I would never do. He said, we see young men with traumatic injuries.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm tuned up on that. That was fine. But he said, then I had to take care of this baby. And he said, if I hadn't studied for the FPC, I would have missed that knowledge. So it really rounds you out, I think.
Yeah, that brings up a good point. And another point that Eric had, we were talking about this before, was, talking specifically about CAMES and the recognition of the different, because there's a lot of critical care stuff out there, but do you want to start following that back up a little bit?
Yeah.
So because everyone is familiar with the UMBC.
Great program.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think you get people that they don't know what they don't know. They go in and they try to look at, this course or that course. And I think that's a longer course, right?
Yep. So they're going to have some clinical.
They pay money, they invest their time. And then they don't know that is not a CAMES recognized advanced certification. So then they get a flight job. And from my side as an educator, when I was a clinical education manager at Air Methods, you'd get people that would be hired and they thought that they were set. And then you had to break it to them that, no, you need to go get the FPC. Can you talk about that from your guys' perspective?
The IBSC exams are really the only specialty exam for paramedics in the world. And they're designed to test that body of knowledge in a very, very psychometrically sound, legally defensible testing way. What UMBC and certification classes like that are, that they cover a body of knowledge and then you have a completion exam at the end, but it's never designed as a credential.
One of the other questions we get all the time is, man, these exams are expensive. They not only a lot of times have to go take a review course. If they take a live review course, they've got to travel. They have to take time off of work. Right? And we understand from a company standpoint that's expensive. We offer an online product that maybe helps lessen that burden. But from the IBSC standpoint, can you explain the difference? Why do you have the testing fee as what it is?
Yeah, it is expensive, and we get that same feedback. The exam, the development of the exam is not inexpensive. We enlist Prometric as our exam partner delivery. They're also our psychometric partners. And so when you look at the questions that go into creating an exam, sure, you might see 135 items on an exam, but in the bank, there's 600, 700, 800 items. We get together SME groups that create those items. It's an ongoing process of editing. So the exams, really, when we roll out a brand new exam, when we brought Flight Paramedic to market, Granted, it was 20 years ago, but if you were to look at that in today's dollars, it's almost $250,000 to develop that exam.
Wow.
And due to our accreditation standards through the NCCA, we have to redo the job analysis for that exam every 5 years. So every 5 years, we're investing, again, another $100,000, $125,000 into that process.
Well, hey, thanks for taking a couple minutes to talk with us here at EMS World. So if you hear in the background, we are live at EMS World. Appreciate you taking some time to talk to us.
Thanks for having me. It's always fun.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll talk to you later.
This has been a production of the FlightBridgeED Podcast, leading the way in pre-hospital critical care and emergency medicine education.